Hello everyone, my name is Malcolm Carlisle. I am working on a comprehensive suicide prevention program for veterans. This is the second class. Today we'll be going over mental resilience, talking about suicide prevention through connection and mental resilience. Mental resilience has been shown to decrease the incidence of PTSD and suicides. So the intent of these courses is to find and propagate methods beyond gatekeeper training that can help people that are possibly having suicidal ideations or presenting with suicidal behaviors. Because in some cases people don't present with these issues, and so if we can get to them before they have these problems, there is the potential to stop them. So the question is, what is mental resilience? And it can be a difficult to define term, but basically it's a quality that allows people to bounce back from setbacks and problems, and we can refine it a little bit and say it's a process of adapting well in the face of adversity, trauma, tragedy, or threats, and when faced with significant sources of stress. So what are some example traits of those that possess mental resilience, so we can get a better idea of what it really means? So for some people, it's a sense of autonomy. So they have an appropriate separation or independence from family dysfunction. Maybe it's being self-sufficient. They're determined to be different, perhaps leaving an abusive home, or being self-protecting. Maybe they set boundaries for toxic relationships, whatever the case may be, and typically they have goals to build a better life. They are usually calm under pressure, and it's equanimity, just the ability to regulate stress. They have a rational thought process. They usually possess self-esteem, right, which is a belief in yourself, optimism or hope for the future. They typically express happiness and emotional intelligence. They often have meaning and purpose. They usually have a sense of humor, and they're usually altruistic, right? They learn to be helpful. They can be loving and compassionate to other people. So they have empathy for other people. So why then do we want to support mental resilience, right? So the experience of more positive emotions and better regulation of negative emotions has shown to cause less depressive symptoms. And again, depression is a major gateway to helplessness and suicide. A greater resistance to stress and overwhelming stress has again shown links to people making decisions to commit suicide. So better coping with stress through enhanced problem solving, a positive orientation, and a reevaluation of stressors. So, looking at as people age into it, an improved sense of well-being despite age-related challenges. Not every veteran is going to be 18 or 20 years old, and as people get older, we want to have these tools built into them already so they can better deal with problems. It's also shown to have better recovery after spinal cord injuries, which can happen to people, and it helps with management of post-traumatic stress disorder symptoms as well. So, other examples of traits that people who have mental resilience possess: character, which is integrity and moral strength; curiosity, they want to look at different things, they want to learn new things. They have good balance. This is engagement in a wide range of activities such as hobbies, educational pursuits, jobs, social and cultural pastimes. They have adaptability, right? They're persistent, confident, and flexible. They accept what can't be controlled, and this is a big part of reframing too, which we'll get into later. And then using creative problem-solving skills and active coping strategies. And this is where resources come into play as well. The more resources you have, the better equipped you are to handle problem solving. And in many cases, they have a religious faith. So, traits of those that possess mental resilience, this is a continuation from the last slide. They have a long view of suffering, which and just means that they're not always focused on just what's happening right in this second. They're thinking about the future and planning. They have good health habits, getting sufficient sleep, and that's going to be a full course. Nutrition, a full course. Exercise, a full course on that one coming up as well. Not using alcohol or other substances, at least not abusing them. Not using tobacco at all, maintaining good personal appearance and hygiene. And then sociability and social competence. And a lot of the rest of this class is going to focus on those things because there are specific parts of being mentally resilient that come with being social and building connection and having good relationships. So getting along, using bonding skills, being willing to seek out and commit to relationships, and enjoying interdependence. So if we can get these young people moving to different locations, or even older people moving to different locations, being able to go out and meet new people and deal with conflict, it can help their mental resilience. So let's talk more about social connection. All right. So loneliness has been linked to suicidal behavior, even when factoring for other mental health conditions based on work. And this is from a study by Stickley and Koyanagi. So loneliness has definitely shown links to suicidal behavior, right? And so when we look at what social connection is, it's a feeling that you belong to a group and generally feel close to other people. So, and this is a core psychological need. So we can focus then on ways to improve social connection and in turn improve mental resiliency and prevent suicides. So things you can do to meet people: attend support groups, go to community activities, volunteer, acknowledge, keeping, and making friends can take effort. And it's very easy, trust me, I've experienced it myself. As I've gotten older, I lost contact with older friends, and it's something that does take work. All right, so if you're by yourself, it's fine, or if we're in groups, you can break into groups. Pause for a second after this, and I want you to think about where you've previously made friends. And something too, if you're a little older, like me in the 40s, do you find you put as much effort into making friends as you used to? List 3 locations that you've made new friends before. Talk about it with other people in the group, and think of new places to meet friends. And if you're by yourself, that's fine. Just think about some of these things about where you've made friends before, and where do you think you can make friends in the future. Okay, so here's some things that you can do to potentially make friends or turn people that you just know into friends, right? So you can invite someone to join you for a quick bite to eat, take a walk, go to lunch, go to a movie, anything that you want to do together with someone. You can give them a message, right? Call or text them, message them. There's Instagram, Facebook, WhatsApp, all these different messaging apps. And it's similar to if you send them an email. Not many people email anymore, but it does. People still email. You can send a short, friendly message and see if they respond. You can talk about things that you're interested in, and it's a good conversation starter, and ask them about what they're interested in as well. You can offer a hand to someone with a task or chore. They might appreciate the help. If you've ever tried to move a couch by yourself before, which I have done, then sometimes it's nice to get offers of help. So a little discussion about that. Let's break into some groups. Think about some of the things listed above. How many of you would be comfortable doing those things? How many of you would be comfortable asking someone to go for a walk or go out to a movie as friends to make new acquaintances, or offering help to someone? How many of you have done those things before and made friends with them? And I'd like you to think about new ways to get to know people better. All right. Now, one thing you want to keep in mind, right, is don't overwhelm new acquaintances. So maybe you want to contact them once. If they don't reach back out to you, that's okay, right? People have their own personal preferences. Me, I'm a bit of an introvert, right? I like keeping to myself, and there's a lot of the people out there who are probably similar. But you still want to focus on, even me, right? As someone who doesn't typically do that, I understand the importance of connection. I can see how critical connection is to having a good life. Right. Use your intuition and common sense to determine when to call and how often. Don't call late at night or early in the morning unless that's something that you both know about. It's one thing if you're both going to go to PT at 5 in the morning and text each other. That's okay. Or maybe there's an emergency. Things do happen, right? So from that perspective, think about a time when someone called you too often. How did you feel when you were sleeping, right? And someone was just pestering you, essentially. So think about it from both perspectives to use your empathy to figure out what's appropriate. All right. Now, maybe you have friendships already, or maybe they're starting to fade, but you have to work to sustain friendships, right? So you have to do that. You have to do some of these things, right? So have a variety of interests. What does that mean? That means go out and do things, right? Go find things to do. You don't have to maybe you're overwhelming your friends with your, constant need. And so maybe you want to go do things on your own. So sometimes the best way to build new friendships is to have your own things to do, which is why you want to be able to enjoy spending time alone as well. All right. And if you have fears or attitudes about being alone, you need to work on fixing those and understand that people have their own lives, people have their own perceptions, people have their own things they like to do. Sometimes people like to be alone, and other times people want to build connection. So that means you need to build more connections then, right? Have plenty of friends that you can go and do things when you want to. Communicate openly. Say what you feel, how you feel. Don't be scared to express emotion. And you want to listen and share, right? Don't just talk about how rough your day is. Think about the other person. Let them share with you. And take equal responsibility in a friendship. If you have a friend who's constantly reaching out to you, maybe it's time you return the favor and did the same thing. Think about personal information too. You don't want to be telling everybody else everything about your friendships. So think about what should be confidential and what shouldn't be shared when someone tells you. And finally, keep in touch. Right? Reach out. Being in military, being a veteran, even a lot of jobs outside of that in the civilian world now, you have to move around quite a bit. So reach out to people if you've moved or moved to a new duty station. It's much easier to do with some of the resources and tools we have now. All right, moving on then. So conflict resolution, right? At some point, you're going to get in conflict with somebody, whether it's a personal relationship or a business. And it's important to be able to deal with these issues. Now, serious risk factors that may be affected are a history of suicidal behavior, existing serious mental illness, particularly with co-occurring anxiety or panic disorder, alcohol and substance abuse, marital, family, or other interpersonal conflict, and a background involving abuse of violence. This was a little excerpt, right, from a study, and it's showing the risk factors associated with suicidal behavior. And so as you can see there, marital, family, and other interpersonal conflict is a serious issue. And this next one here, skills in problem solving. Conflict resolution and nonviolent handling of disputes can be a tremendous asset to someone battling suicidal thoughts, because feeling stuck in a problem or situation often leads to helpless feelings. Again, going back to, looking at having stress, having an issue, feeling depressed, feelings of helplessness lead to the suicidal ideations or behaviors. So being able to think around problems and having resources can be useful. So, what are some aspects of conflict? Conflict is a normal part of any healthy relationship. Conflict arises from differences, both large and small. It occurs whenever people disagree over values, motivations, perceptions, ideas, or desires. Think about even people you grew up around. They have different beliefs, different belief systems, different thoughts about things. So imagine meeting someone from a different part of the world, different part of the country, different background. You will have differences. So conflict is more than a disagreement. They can tend to fester when ignored. They are perception-based. So what does it mean when I say perception-based? It means the problems are inside both of your heads, right? Maybe you have a way you want to handle it, and the other person has a way that they want to handle it. You are creating the conflict amongst yourselves. They can be emotional triggers. They can make you feel helpless or angry in some cases if you're used to having your way in many instances. But conflict resolution can lead to emotional growth. So it's an important thing to be able to break down conflict and how to manage it. All right, so what are some healthy responses to conflict? An empathic response. And that means you think about what the other person is experiencing. You don't have to agree with them, but you can maybe see where they're coming from or why they've come to their point of reasoning. They're calm about it, right? You have the ability to avoid resentment. These negative emotional responses can wear on your system. They become stress. You can be, if you're compromise seeking or avoiding punishment, right? If you're looking to get back at somebody during a conflict, that's not a healthy response. And a belief that conflict is natural and better to face. When you look at the styles of conflict management, avoidance is always categorically the worst thing that you can do. All right, so, and even just understanding that people are going to have differences of opinion about way to handle things can really make things easier when it comes to conflict management. Unhealthy responses, all right? So we're looking at an inability to empathize, that just not wanting to see that maybe there is another point of view besides your own. In personal relationships, it could be a withdrawal of affection. It could be an inability or just plain not wanting to compromise, not ever seeking a middle ground or compromise. Maybe you avoid the problem altogether. And then there could be explosive episodes. You have resentment and you want to hurt the other person emotionally. These are not healthy responses. And if you do them, we've got some resources you can use at the end. For many veterans, you've got Veterans Affairs offices on military bases through TRICARE. You have access to mental health care resources. So some components then of successful conflict resolution, all right? A big part of that is managing stress quickly while remaining alert and calm. So essentially you've got your fight or flight mode, and what this does is it puts your brain in this high stress environment, and it actually affects your ability to reason. So if you're able to stay calm, to manage your stress, you're much better able to manage the situation so you can read and interpret their verbal and nonverbal communication. So being able to control your emotions and behavior, right? So when you're in control of your emotions, you can communicate your needs without threatening, intimidating, or punishing others. You're also going to be more likely to pay attention to the feelings being expressed as well as the spoken words of others, because someone who says, "I'm fine," is not the same as someone who says, "I'm fine," right? There is a difference to the emotion. People can say a lot of things, but verbal communication is only the tip of the iceberg when it comes to communication. Finally, be aware of and respect differences. By avoiding disrespectful words and actions, you can certainly solve problems faster. All right, so emotional awareness. Do you experience feelings that flow, encountering one emotion after another as you experience changes from moment to moment? Just be open to it, right? Are your emotions accompanied by physical sensations that you experience in places like your stomach or chest? Remember, stress is going to be, in many cases, the physical manifestation of your thought process. If you become emotionally hyper aware, then you're going to trigger your body to have a stress response. Do you feel it? Do you experience distinct feelings and emotions such as anger, sadness, fear, and joy, which are evident in different facial expressions? So most people are going to elicit these responses facially as well. Can you experience intense feelings that are strong enough to capture both your own attention and that of others? And do you pay attention to emotions? Do they factor into your decision making? You do need to be emotionally aware. Your emotions, many people downplay how important emotions are. The whole basis of connection is built around emotion. Human beings crave connection. So you should be aware of your emotional state. So resolving conflicts. Now this is a fairly short class. I'm going to list some resources at the end, but this is kind of the nuts and bolts of it. All right, listen for what is felt as well as said. When you really listen, you connect more deeply to your own needs and emotions and to those of other people. Listening also strengthens, informs, and makes it easier for others to hear you when it's their turn to speak. Next up, make conflict resolution the priority rather than winning or being right. You can certainly win an argument and not get anywhere, okay, or resolve a conflict. So maintain and strengthen relationships rather than winning. The argument should always be the first priority, right? So again, you're not focused on winning, you're focused on conflict resolution. And be respectful of other people and their viewpoints. So focus on the present in this case. If you're holding on the grudges based on past conflicts, right, it's going to kind of color your perception. So and perception decides your reality in many cases. So your ability to see the reality of the current situation will be impaired. So rather than looking to the past and assigning blame, focus on what you can do in the here and now to solve the problem. All right, so some other things too. Pick your battles, right? Always being in a constant state of conflict will drain you. So it's important to consider whether the issue is really worth your time and energy, right? Maybe you don't want to surrender a parking space if you've been circling for 15 minutes, but if there are dozens of empty spots, maybe it's not worth it. Be willing to forgive. Resolving conflict is impossible if you're unwilling or unable to forgive others because your emotions will come back into play. Resolution lies in releasing the urge to punish, which can serve only to deplete and drain your energy and your life. So focus on you in those cases, and what not forgiving someone, it's not the same as forgetting, but what impact it's going to have on you holding on to these things. Finally, know when to let something go. If you can't come to agreement, agree to disagree. It takes two people to keep an argument going. I'm sure there are some of you out there who have a conflict going on right now with another person from 10 years ago that they are not aware of. You got to ask yourself, is that a healthy way to carry on? So if a conflict is going nowhere, you can choose to disengage and move on. All right, so if you have any questions about some of this, all right, if you need additional help, then there are plenty of mental health resources through the Veterans Affairs Office, okay? Counselors are available. Just remember, building connection and learning to resolve conflict is a critical part of the human experience, and I want everybody out there to be able to connect and grow. So if you have any questions, here are some of the resources that I used. And again, my name is Malcolm Carlisle. Hope you enjoyed and got something out of this course, and I look forward to seeing you in the next classes. Thank you for your time.